Kia ora, good evening. Gloria Davis, wife of Easy Rider skipper Invercargill, has been found guilty of charges laid against her and the company AZI regarding the sinking of the vessel near Stewart Island in March 2012.
Maritime New Zealand has welcomed the guilty verdicts against Gloria Davis and AZ1 Enterprises Limited on charges relating to the sinking and loss of 8 lives off Stewart Island in March 2012. Ms Davis and AZ1 had been charged with knowingly allowing the vessel to operate while in full knowledge that the late Invercargill did not hold the appropriate skipper's certificate, that the vessel was permitted to be operated in a manner which caused unnecessary danger or risks to persons on board. That as the director of AZ1, Ms Davis acquiesced or participated in the failure of the company to ensure the safety of contractors or subcontractors working on board the vessel. Maritime New Zealand Director Keith Manch says the verdict should send a strong message to operators in the fishing industry. He says the decision to prosecute Ms Davis was not taken lightly, given she has already suffered greatly as a result of the incident. However, the sinking of the Easy Rider was the worst maritime disaster in terms of loss of life since the sinking of the Wahine. He says as such it was very important that action was taken that reflected the extent of harm, the loss of 8 lives, and the very real responsibility of those operating in the maritime sector.
Formal identification has been carried out on the person who died in the caravan fire on Bluff Road in the early hours of Sunday morning. The woman found dead was Teresa Ann Thompson, aged 44 years. The matter has now been referred to the coroner's office. The Invercargill Fire Service and police are currently investigating the cause of the fatal early morning blaze, which started in the caravan and spread to the nearby dwelling. Invercargill City Chief Executive Richard King believes the council will have to utilise the Health Act to remove at least 34 of the 37 cats being kept on a city property. Mr King says the situation is intolerable for neighbours of the property in question and that it was time for action. Hunter Andrews asked how long the council had been working with the owner to overcome the problem.
It's been a problem for about 4 years. And I think we've had around about 2 years of promises, but nothing's materialised. So the situation is totally intolerable for the neighbours, with around about 37 cats roaming the neighbourhood, and we felt we had to act.
So there has been that ongoing communication with her? Yes,
there has been, and it's, you know, the problem we've got with the bylaw really is that the penalty is a fine. And the problem, though, is getting rid of the cats. And so what we're looking at all options. Obviously, the trapping is one option. And I want to say here that I think people have been upset by the word trap, and I think they envisage the trap actually killing the cat. That's not so. These are cages. And even if people trap or cage stray cats, they still have to comply with the provisions of the Animal Welfare Act, and that's actually on our website. And if you trap a stray cat, you can take it down to the SPCA, and for a donation they will either attempt to rehouse the animal or have it put down in a humane fashion.
So that bylaw, it wasn't specifically, there are other examples of this sort of situation, but perhaps not as extreme?
This is probably one of the more extreme, but we've struck it in the past as well. And what's happened, people may have had 25 cats as an example, and with their cooperation they have reduced the number, but within, say, 6 months they're back at 25 or even more, where the person acquires more cats.
Your sympathies then do lie with the complainants, don't they, the neighbours who are putting up with this, and you're saying a couple of years of activity there, so they've been putting up with it for quite some time.
The neighbours have been extremely tolerant, but it's got to come to an end. And for example, just the cat faeces in the neighbourhood must be horrendous. If there were people there, they couldn't invite the grandkids around to play outside because there's dangers there. You certainly get disease from cat faeces, things like that. So it's got to end.
So court Possibly, very likely actually, and what after that and what sort of time frame are you looking at? She could actually opt to defend this case, couldn't she?
Yes, she could, and if that was the situation, you might not get a court hearing for 10 months. So we're looking at other options, and we believe a good option is actually under the Health Act, because obviously there's serious concerns inside the house. The neighbours, there'll be health concerns for the neighbours, and then you have to look at the actual welfare of the cats themselves.
A bill to help hold partners complicit in welfare fraud to account has passed its second reading in Parliament today. The Welfare Fraud Bill will change the law to make partners of beneficiaries who fraudulently receive a single or sole parent rate of benefit criminally liable for their part in the fraud. The bill's part of a package of reforms designed to prevent, detect and punish welfare fraud. It includes better information sharing with Inland Revenue, which has so far resulted in the cancellation of 5,300 illegitimate benefits worth over $56 million a year, and stringent new checks for people previously caught taking money from work and income. Still to come on the bulletin, illegal hunting on private land and a first for Stewart Island's marine history. Welcome back. Respecting farmers' property rights is essential if hunters want to gain access to hunt game or fish on private property. Federated Farmers Southland President Russell McPherson believes there's a link between illegal hunting, unauthorised slaughtering and on-farm theft in the south.
Every animal that's poached off our farms is taken up is potential income for that farmer involved. And it's not only that, it's that somebody actually is walking over our property or doing something on our property without our knowledge. And look, let's remember, we're talking about property rights here. You know, if you've got a section in town and if you saw somebody walking across your section, you'd say, well, hey, what are you doing here? And if you don't want that person there, you'd say, get off my section and away you go. And it's the same thing with farming. Just because we own a big parcel of land doesn't mean that anybody can just wander onto our farms and do what they like.
We're potentially dealing with two different groups of people here, the hunters who are going out with firearms and specifically looking for wild game, deer or pigs on farm, and perhaps are doing that illegally by not clearing it with the farmer. And then there's ones that are perhaps opportunistic and just taking advantage of the sheep or whatever it might be that's in the paddock.
Yeah, well that's right. Well, maybe two of them might be the same person, we don't know. But hey, you know, if you're a keen deer stalker, keen pig hunter, ask the farmer and she will probably give you that access. A lot of farmers actually are willing to actually share their resource with other people. You know, example is the same with fishermen, fishing on rivers. You know, we all think that there's Queen's chains along our rivers, but they're not. And in some cases, the river has shifted and there's actually no legal access to a river. If you go and ask that farmer that beside that river, they will usually give you the access.
As far as the hunters or the ones that are going out specifically looking for game meat and aren't successful, do you think that they perhaps would take advantage of a sheep that might be in the paddock at that time, and perhaps any other opportunities that might be with personal property on farm?
Yeah, that does happen. I mean, and you ask anybody who's got a property that has wild deer and wild pigs, they do lose a number of sheep and cattle to unauthorised slaughtering, and their sheds are well and truly rifled through as well. So it's pretty disappointing that we've got part of our community are willing to go onto our farms and do this to farmers. Let's remember that every item that's taken, it's got to be replaced. Every sheep or cattle beast that's killed is less income for that farmer. And farming is a hard business, and we deal with climate all the time. We deal with up and downs in prices, and the last thing we need is people coming onto our farms and taking away our property.
Environment Southland features on a new website launched this week, which displays the results of water quality monitoring for rivers throughout the country.
The website Land, Air, Water Aotearoa or LAWA displays state and trend information for 76 freshwater quality monitoring sites in Southland and over 1,100 sites from around New Zealand. Environment Southland Chair Ali Tim says the LAWA website is an innovative initiative, and as it grows and develops, it will become the go-to site for all the important monitoring data that regional councils hold. LAWA also allows people to share information about what's happening in waterways. People can share news, report pollution or promote water-related events such as clean-up days or riparian plantings.
The Southern Farmers Market have confirmed they will be relocating to the inner city. The weekly produce market had to move from its current location at Southland Boys High School due to a rule change by the Ministry of Education. The market began 7 years ago with a handful of stallholders. At certain times of the year, that number has now grown to over 30. The relocation allows for good potential in the long term, with better visibility and branding opportunities, according to one committee member.
The City Council is obviously focused on making this a community hub, and in a city plan this was going to be a market area anyway, and if they develop the hall as intended, there'll be a lot of other groups using that facility, so we think we can benefit from the activity from the other groups as well.
What's involved with the relocation as far as cost comparisons go here?
Probably it's quite cost effective making the shift, but it will obviously be, we're going to rebrand ourselves and there'll be a lot of marketing involved as well in the shift, so that'll have some financial impact.
And as far as the refit goes with City Council, what has to be done to this area to enable you to operate from here?
Well, putting some ties in the ground so we can tie down our canopies will be really useful, and with the Scottish Hall itself we need a really good disabled access.
Just talk us through the layout and how it's going to work.
Well, on an outside day, if it's really good weather, we'll be situated just beside the WEA building, just where we are here, and on a wet day we'll be inside the hall. We had to look at the long-term future of the market, and we can see that this has got lots of possibilities, as I said, with community groups using this area. And there's a lot of traffic going past in this area as well, whereas the Boys High situation was a really good venue, but it wasn't very visible from the street, so we can see that we'll have a lot more visibility.
This will allow you to have some permanent signage up?
That's right. On the side of the Scottish Hall we're hoping to have a sign up there so people can see that this is where we'll be. And I think the hall's going to be used for other musical groups and things like that, so hopefully we might get the support of them as well.
Will there be any changes to the market itself going forward with what's on offer?
Well, it'll be the same stallholders that we've got at present, and we're just hoping that the market will continue to grow and people will see ongoing change.
And that market will be operating from its new Esk Street premises from the 6th of April. A whalers base on Stewart Island has been declared an archaeological site by the New Zealand Historic Places Trust, making it the first marine heritage site in the country.
The Norwegian whalers base at Price's Inlet includes the shipwreck Othello, a slipway and dam in Western Bay, an ammunition store and Swedish boiler at Millers Beach. All these objects and sites are now legally protected. The Rosshavel Whaling Company of Norway used the base from 1926 to 1932 as a repair centre for chaser boats used for chasing and processing whales for oil, before the end product was loaded into a bigger vessel for shipping. An archaeological survey of the site was undertaken a year ago.
Coming up in sport tonight, we speak with Brendan McDermott, CEO from Sport Southland, about the upcoming Southland Sport Awards. That's up after the weather next. From the news team, good night.